Jenny Wolf. I want to welcome you to this webinar. I oversee marketing and education at Sola Salon Studios, and I'm just so grateful to have you guys on this webinar today. We know how important sanitation best practices are as we all get ready to get back in the salon, and we know that there's a lot of information flying around out there in various different markets and when we're opening and what it looks like and what the guidelines are. And we know that this can be confusing. So we wanted to bring you all together today with some amazing industry experts to talk to you about how you can best prepare for your reopening. We can go to the next slide. We also do you'll hear us talking to Melissa during this webinar. Melissa is running the slides, and she'll also be monitoring questions. I wanted to also invite you to a webinar on Tuesday where we're going to be talking about different reopening and opening strategies for anybody that's opening a salon for the first time or reopening post COVID-19 shutdown. So please feel free to join us on a webinar on Tuesday as well. And with that, I want to introduce you to one of our hosts of today's webinar, Miss Kim Bennett, Kimmy Kisses. She is our Culture Ambassador and Director of Industry Relations at Sola Salon Studios. And Kimmy really is the first person that brought all of these great resources that Barbicide is offering to our attention. I know that she completed her certification a few weeks ago and has been looking into all the different strategies and things that she can do to reopen her Denver salon that she's been in her Sola studio for coming up on 16 years. So Kimmy, thank you so much for co-leading today's webinar, and with that, I will pass it over to you. I do not hear
Hi, everyone.
Kimmy.
I am just trying to unmute her. One moment. All right, Kimmy, you should be good.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay, everyone?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny, for that introduction. I just want to say I have been overwhelmed by the interest of this amazing webinar. We're so glad to have all these different kinds of people on today. You know, Sola is such an inclusive culture in the industry, and it just makes sense because so is Barbicide, because both of our brands really work with every type of beauty professional. So I really welcome all of our Sola professionals on here. All of our Sola franchisees and managers are listening in, and to everyone else who has joined us today, welcome. I think that we are all searching for a common ground right now. Every state has different rules and regulations and when they're going to open. So for me, I just kind of started at the basics with Barbicide, and some friends of mine, Robert and Mary Cromie, told me about this amazing recertification you could do over at the Barbicide website. So I checked it out, and then I just felt so empowered. I think that we all have this virus that has completely changed our lives. We're all home and unemployed, and you know, with our kids that are not in school, and it was the first thing that really just gave me an empowerment to do something. Like I felt like I was fighting it back against that virus. I was telling Barbicide, I was like, you take that virus. So anyway, I just got so engrossed in all their podcasts and all of their checkoff lists that they were doing. And I just said, we have to get involved and help get Sola, like, you know, connected so we can all get certified. And then it just kind of all grew from there. So I'm so grateful that both companies have come together. And on that note, when I was listening to all those podcasts, I got to listen to the most amazing lady, Leslie Rossi. She is a registered nurse that graduated from the University of Kansas. She studied nursing and microbiology, and after leaving nursing, she became part of the professional beauty industry as a subject matter expert on infection control and public safety. She has written many articles and speaks to audiences large and small on infection control and chemical safety in the work environment, specializing in salon and barber industry. I could go on all afternoon on everything that she does as an advocate on occupational licensing as it relates to public health and safety in our industry. Leslie has been working with over 30 state boards and their executive directors, and most of all, and most important right now, most recently, on revision of infection control rules. It is a true privilege to have Leslie join us today and share her expertise in real time with us. And my personal favorite thing about Leslie is she's a true educator, so relatable. She speaks our language. So what an honor to have an advocate in the fight against this virus, COVID-19, for not only our livelihoods, but for the safety of us all and our customers. And last but not least, she visits the solo salon where her stylist works, so she understands our culture and has a great perspective of our responsibility to reopening safely, as does every type of salon. So welcome, Leslie. Without further ado, we have Leslie Rossi.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? I guess you can't say yes. I'm going to assume that you can. I appreciate
you're good.
Okay, good.
And you know, Leslie, I feel like we're sisters. I wear a lot of hats too in the industry. I'm an educator for Paul Mitchell, and I'm Sola's culture ambassador and their director of industry relations. And so we didn't really know all of your titles. So we just are so grateful as you wear all those hats that we even got you for an hour today. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Totally appreciate it. I appreciate the whole lead in. That was quite the bio you read. Usually people just pick one or two things and that's good enough. So I appreciate it. But I did want to tell you that one of the things you did talk about before we go too much into the content, I did have a call yesterday. There has been a aggregation of state boards of cosmetology. Yesterday I was on a call with the executive directors for over 30 states for the state boards of cosmetology. Everybody going through and talking about what's going on in their own individual states when they anticipate reopening. If you are feeling like the state you are in that you don't have a lot of guidance yet, know that that's because your state is waiting for some guidance from your governors. That seemed to be the really pronounced thread in that call yesterday, that so many states are waiting for their governors to decide where this industry falls in the opening plans. Some states are really thinking that this would be, one of the first things to open, and some of them are more middle ground. And there's a couple states that are wanting to wait until closer to the end of opening. It sounds like for this industry. So I think we'll do a wait and see. Georgia was on the call yesterday and talked extensively about their reopening today, what they were, the feedback they were getting from both licensees, stylists and consumers. It's about a 50-50 split. About 50% of the actual licensees did not feel like it was quite ready to, time to go back yet. And a lot of consumers were upset with them reopening salons and barbershops. Everything is opening in Georgia in that regard. So I will stay abreast of that, and I'll let your leadership know what I hear as that goes forward. So you can go to the next slide.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. That's so interesting because I live in Colorado and we are literally in the middle of that. So it explains a lot.
Yeah, Colorado, they said they're still on a sort of a day-to-day plan at Colorado, they said. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. But I do think that when you go back, so we created a document at Barbicide. It's called the Back to Work Plan. It's attached here. If you go to our website, there's a bunch of podcasts that I did, Barbicide certification. But the thing people are looking for right now is this back to work plan. On Monday, what will also be up, just in case I forget to say it, I want to say it now, is some consumer facing education will be available that you can download and use. And then it will be things like table tents that you can put on your station, or that says, this was disinfected. And I realize your situation is a little bit different because the presumption, because it's a one-on-one relationship, is that one person leaves and another person comes, and that happened in between. But there will also be another certification available on next Friday, on May 1st, that will be COVID-19 specific. And there's also a certificate that goes with it. It will be basically COVID-19 training for the beauty professional. So it will not be difficult, but it will encompass all the things we know today or I shouldn't even say today. That's the reason we're releasing it May 1st, is we're trying to get as close to most people's opening date as possible so that the information is relevant, right? It changes every day. So back to the topic at hand, which is the back to work document. The back to work document was intended for you to use as you go back to work to prepare. So if your state tells you that you can go back to work on Friday, let's say, on Wednesday is probably when you are starting to say, you know, today's the day I'm going to go back in and I'm going to get everything ready for those first clients that show up on Friday. Now, look, I don't expect you, I mean, my background's in nursing, and I do not expect you to go back feeling like this is the easiest thing you've ever done. I expect you to have a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of nerves, because this is a new thing for everybody, and it will be a new thing for your clients. And one of the things I keep telling states when I talk to them is they're talking about what's the best thing, you know, talk to these governor's offices, and they want to know what should we put in as guidelines or regulations when we go back to work in this industry. And one of the things I'm trying to say to them is, let's not make it any harder than it has to be, but let's make it safe. Let's acknowledge that you cannot keep 6-foot distance from your clients. It's just not possible because of the type of job you do. So let's remember all the things that you learned in cosmetology school and feel empowered by that. You know, you learned, depending how old you are when you went to school, you either learned standard precautions or universal precautions, really basically the same thing, different name that changed over time. And that said to you at the time when we taught it to you back then, to pretend like all blood and bodily fluids were potentially infectious. And we were back then generally talking about HIV. That was really the push to put those into cosmetology education. I think today you should use that same concept, feel empowered that you already know that, and use it and make yourself think that everyone you come into contact with anywhere, but particularly in your place of business, is COVID positive, including yourself. How do you behave differently if you make the assumption that you have it or that the people that are coming in have it? Make that assumption, because arguably, as we know, 60% of people that actually have it and can be transmitting it have no symptoms at all, or are so mildly symptomatic that they wouldn't, you know, if you asked them, hey, have you had a fever? They'd be like, nope. Those are things that they just haven't experienced. So this document was meant to take away some of the angst that you might feel about going back and feeling like you've really done everything you can. So go to the next slide. Remember,
I love that.
Yeah, remember.
It's such a great, you know, I just love that perspective of just, it really takes the fear out of it. I just feel like I'm more in control of that atmosphere right off the bat.
Right. And you know what? Here's what I would say to you. Infection control is sometimes by states made into something way bigger than it needs to be. It's a super simple concept. And once you get into the habit of doing it, if you haven't been doing it properly or you haven't had the time to always get it done, you're going to be doing it now. And once that is your habit, it will just kind of like second nature to you. It will be so easy to do. And most of what we're asking you to do should just be me preaching to the choir. You've already been doing it. It's all the disinfection things you've done. So you know this, you've got this. The biggest leap I think you're going to have, and I think they're going to talk about it later in the call, is going to be how to have that conversation with your customer, how to make your customer feel confident, because I think that's going to be the biggest stumbling block of this economy opening back up, is that even though you're allowed to open, that won't be enough unless the consumer feels comfortable coming. So I think that's later in the call, so I'll stay in my lane and talk about this. So some of the disinfection reminders, I just want to remind you, all your disinfectants that you use need to be EPA registered, and that's in every state. So they have to be bactericidal, virucidal, and fungicidal. If you go to, I know they're hard to find right now, but let's say you can't find what you normally use. Let's say you normally use barbicide and you're struggling to find it, and you go to Walgreens. The most commonly absent thing on that label will be a fungus. So fungicidal is the one that typically is not attainable by most of the things that you would buy, let's say at a drugstore or grocery store. Now, on the call yesterday, I had a lot of states that were worried about the supply of barbicide. Would it be available for their licensees? Because licensees are panicking a little bit that they aren't able to find it today. And I want to put your minds all at ease a little bit here. And I want to tell you a little bit about supply chain, a tiny bit. And that is that part of the problem with supply chain right now, if you think of toilet paper or anything else, isn't that there isn't enough. It's just getting it moved around the country is a little more challenging right now. One of the things that we depend on as manufacturers are those big containers, the things that go in the back of trucks. A lot of those containers come from China. And when China shut down, containers quit coming. So there's just little things like that that became a problem. So we would continue to make barbicide. We'd put it in a truck and we would drive it to a warehouse, and the warehouse might be closed because of a stay-at-home order, or all the stores that it was selling into were closed. So there was nowhere to store the content of the trucks. So feel confident that when you go back, you will be able to get barbicide. One of the items that may be a little bit of a challenge to get in everybody's state, no matter what you're looking for, will be wipes. Wipes will be in kind of short supply everywhere for a short period of time, probably till maybe the end of May. And that's because most wipes have gone into healthcare all across the country. And isopropyl alcohol is widely used. It's one of the largest by volume ingredients in a wipe. And that also has been a little bit of a challenge to move around the country. But please don't feel like you're not going to be able to find barbicide when you go out back into your salons. You will be able to find it. So make sure that you always have the EPA registered disinfectants. All of ours are COVID-19 or human coronavirus labeled. If you have a question, because human coronavirus and COVID-19 won't be on anybody's label, but even human coronavirus, some products have tested for it. Our barbicide is a perfect example. We tested for it, but it was not actually on our label because you only have so much space. So yes, we had the test for it, and yes, we are on the N list for the EPA, but you wouldn't have known that if you didn't go to either our website or to the EPA's N list to find out. So don't make an assumption until you go to look or ask a few questions. Disinfection only works on a clean item. I'm probably telling you something you know. So you're always going to want to clean that item, your implements I'm talking about here, with soap and water or with Ship Shape, a chemical cleaner, before you disinfect. And then when you do go to disinfect, almost every state, well, about 30% of the states allow for some wipes or some sprays in certain instances, but the vast majority require immersion. But all disinfectants have a contact time, and that is how long it takes for that disinfectant to work. And I think everybody on this call would agree that in today's world, you want the maximum benefit out of your disinfectant, so contact time is important. Every label of an EPA registered disinfectant will have that length of time. How long does the item have to be fully immersed or fully wet? But in our case for barbicide, it's 10 minutes when it's in the immersion container. It's also 10 minutes if you take that spray and put it into, or that spray, I'm sorry, that same solution that you mix up to put in your jar, you can put it into a spray bottle and you can spray it on things. So like, think like your back bar or, even, your shampoo bowl, that kind of thing. You can spray it with barbicide, 10-minute contact time. Clipper side is a 10-minute contact time, and the wipes are a 2-minute contact time. So it's a giant time savings, but remember that it's not always allowed in every single state for your implement. So just know the rules of your state. Okay, next slide.
Oh, this is so great. I think that was probably the contact time was a big one for me about recertifying and hearing that again in that discipline that you were talking about right before. So I love that, Leslie.
Well, the thing with contact time that I think people don't maybe remember it from when they were in school. Because remember, I always feel like this. I feel like the subject that I talk about is like seriously like the most boring subject in all of cosmetology school. Because I walk into cosmetology schools and they're doing really cool things, and then I'm talking to them about this, and it's like, wah, wah. But the contact time is important because that is how you know that everything on a list was either killed or inactivated. That 10 minutes means that everything on that list that's on our label was actually taken care of. It's not a worry for you. If you just take something and stick it in for 2 minutes, it might kill some things, but it's probably not killing the things you're most concerned about, right? So it takes a little bit of time. I have people ask me all the time, if I double concentrate it, does it take it down to 5 minutes? And I'm sorry to say that's not the case. It's 10 minutes, even if you stuck it in full concentrate with no water in it. So you might as well save your money and just mix it up correctly. So your disinfectant is required to be changed daily if you're immersing things in it. So if you have a jar, if you have a tub, that has to be made fresh daily. That is
really quickly. Let's.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just going to say we had a lot of questions coming in about diluting. Can you speak to that? Does the spray solution need to be diluted?
Oh yeah, so the spray solution, you'll dilute it the exact same way that you do if you're going to make it for immersion. So that would be 1/4 cup of the disinfectant concentrate, so barbicide concentrate, with 4 cups of water. So that's what you would put if you're making it in a jar to immerse in, or if you're putting it into a spray bottle. So the nice thing about the spray bottle, I was just getting ready to say, is that the spray bottle does not need to be made every
those
day,
are all
right? You're gonna dump out any. They're what? I can't hear anybody. Okay, I'm gonna keep talking until someone tells me to stop. Okay. So okay.
Oh, you're good.
So if you make up disinfectant, if you make up barbicide for immersion, you're going to dump that out at the end of the day and make fresh every morning. But if you're putting it into a spray bottle, you can use it until it's gone because you're not sticking anything in that bottle, so you're not contaminating it. So you can continue to use that until it's gone. One thing I need to remind everybody, I keep getting calls about this over and over and over again, is that disinfection is for hard, non-porous surfaces. So think glass, metal, plastic. Do not think my chair, my couch, my towels. Those are porous items and typically cannot be properly disinfected. People ask me about their chairs a lot. And I really, as much as I would love for you to buy a whole bunch of barbicide and barbicide the heck out of your chairs, it's really just going to ruin your chairs. It's not really made for that material. And so over time, it's going to cause it to dry. So on those soft surfaces, really the best you can do is to clean them. I would say a clean washcloth with soapy water. If you feel better, you can run a wipe over it at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. If you feel like you need to do something additional with that chair, I would suggest you come up with some kind of a barrier method, like a towel over the back of the chair where you might put your hands, a towel over the armrest, something like that. And then those towels can be washed in between clients. Right, next slide. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so once you're inside the salon, I want you to think of all the things that you need to get rid of right away, which you probably don't want to, but anything that doesn't need to be there shouldn't be there. So think of your magazines, any of the books with the pictures of hair in them. You can tell I'm not a stylist, whatever those books, I think they're called lookbooks. Those need to go away. Anything that multiple people are going to touch need to go away. Candy dishes need to go away. Coffee bars, if you have them, like a little coffee setup, you can make coffee and get coffee for your client. So that you're the only one touching it. I almost would rather you just get rid of that for right now. But if you want to continue to have that, that needs to go away for a while in terms of everybody touching it. So it needs to be just you touching it. In your workstations, look, this should all be stuff you're already doing, cleaning and disinfecting all of your non-porous implements and surfaces, storing everything properly as you already have been doing, clean or disinfected items in their own container that say that they're ready to be used. Having a container that your dirty things go into until they're disinfected, closed covered containers for all of your towels. Your electrical implements, I will be honest with you, most states don't address this very effectively. What I would tell you with electrical implements, particularly like clippers, is once you've disinfected them, I don't want them in the drawer with your already disinfected items if you have a drawer situation, because that cord is always going to be sticking out and you can't properly disinfect that cord. So you can put them on a clean towel, covered by a clean towel, on a hook, anything like that would work for your electrical implements, unless your state says otherwise. You're going to make sure that all your single-use items, I think it's really important right now for your consumer that I see that it is a single-use item and that is fresh and new. If it is in single-use packaging, I would set it out that way and I would open it in front of your consumer so they know that it is the first time anyone's used that nail file, that buffing block, whatever that item is. I would make sure that all your tables are cleaned and disinfected. And that would include, for me, if I were doing nails in particular, the table where you might send me to dry, the one with the, okay, I'm not a nail tech either, clearly, but where you put my feet and where you put my hands, I realize that most people have the assumption that that ultraviolet light kills things. I would not assume that. And I would either put a towel under my feet, a clean towel, and a clean towel under my hands, or make sure that you have disinfected that and that they know that, because everybody else's hands are going to be there. Make sure that any product you're coming back to, you may want to start with all fresh new product, but make sure that any product you are coming back to doesn't have signs that it wasn't removed properly, like finger marks through pomades and waxes, that kind of thing. If you have a wax pot, I would like you to completely start with fresh wax. And I know that none of you are double dipping. I pray that none of you are double dipping. Creates a lot of problems. It's a really good way to spread some really bad things. So assuming you're not double dipping, all you need to do is clean out your wax pot and get a bunch of fresh new sticks to be ready. And then all your multi-use containers, just make sure that you feel like they were being used properly before you left, and you either replace it with new or make sure you have plenty of spatulas to remove that with. Next slide. Can you change the slide for me? Your laundry, any salon, any linens that were left in a salon, if that means that they were clean or dirty, when you, yeah, yeah, there we go. Any linens that were left in the salon, whether they were clean or dirty, I'm assuming you didn't leave any clean or dirty items in the, or any dirty ones in there. But I would, just to make myself feel better, I would just make sure everything was fresh, freshly washed and dried. Some states have particular rules on how you launder your towels. They may tell you that it has to be laundered at a specific temperature, which in general, you don't know what that temperature is in your wash machine. So I just say hot is what they're typically trying to get you to do. And then my biggest thing is, if you think of your laundry, I think of laundry this way. If you have to clean an implement before you disinfect it, I think of my washer and dryer the same way. The wash machine is really meant as the cleaning cycle, right? It's not really, that detergent isn't really going to do anything super fabulous to your towels, other than cause all your towels to sort of bounce together with a whole bunch of bubbles, just like it is when you're washing an implement or even washing your hands, and cause things to go down the drain, which is what we want them to do. Typically, the water doesn't get really hot enough to kill anything. And I give you this little aside, bleach and hot water, that's the worst way to use bleach. Hot water causes bleach to separate. So when you put bleach and hot water together, you're really just ruining your towels faster. You're not doing anything fabulous there. But that's the cleaning step in my mind. What really kills things is that dryer. The heat of the dryer gets really good and hot. So my advice is to leave your towels in the dryer until they are hot to the touch. Like you literally couldn't touch them because they're that hot. Then you know you've killed as many things as you can. I would also say that providing a clean cape to each guest, if you have the kind that can be disinfected, like a color cape, those finally ones, you could use a wipe on those with a 2-minute contact time, but laundered ones will need to be laundered between clients. Next slide, which I know is shampoo bowls. Shampoo bowls, when she gets to shampoo bowls, most of your states have a rule about shampoo bowls. The vast majority of states will say that you have to disinfect those at the end of the day. That's really up to you. I don't really, in your services, how much you're using them, that kind of thing. But I think at the very least right now, I would take a wipe to that shampoo bowl, even if that's not required by your state, in between your clients, just to disinfect the bowl. But particularly if you look at this picture, the place I always worry about that people don't disinfect as well is the place where you can kind of see the forward facing part of the bowl where my neck would go in. And if any of my skin was going to be touching, that's where it would be. And you know how when you put me back in the shampoo bowl, how I kind of have to adjust up and down a few times before I'm just in that right place. That's the place where I'm touching the shampoo bowl the most. And that might be a place you want to consider that maybe you haven't in the past. I think the next one is pedicure bowls, if you want to go to the next slide. So most of your states have rules on pedicure bowls that I am not a huge fan of. Rules where you do one thing after each client, one thing different at the end of the day, and then something super duper at the end of the week. I'm not a big fan of that, because to me, that makes the unsafest service at 5 o'clock on Saturday and the safest service of the service of the week Monday morning, right? Because you did your super duper thing on Saturday afternoon before you closed. I would like every service to be as safe as possible. So to me, you're going to remove everything that's removable from your pedicure bowl after each service. If it's a removable item, you're going to clean and disinfect it like you would an implement. And then you're going to wipe out your bowl. You're going to do the cleaning step on your bowl by wiping it out and using some type of a cleaner. Some states will require you to use a detergent on that. Then I'm going to have you put back in the implements that you cleaned and disinfected. So everything's put back together. And now you're going to put disinfectant, barbicide or Spa-Side Complete in your bowl, and you're going to put the proper amount for however much water your bowl holds, and you're going to let it sit for the contact time. Or if you have jets, you're going to run it through for the contact time. Now, Spa-Side Complete is made for pedicure bowls because it's really low foam. So you're going to want to let that run through for the full 10 minutes, then drain it, and then rinse it out with clean water and start again. I know it sounds like a huge pain and a lot of time, but the reality is, when you look at the injuries that come to the state boards, the top 3 injuries, I work on a commission that is looking at looking at all the injuries across the country, and the top 3 injuries across the country are in eyelash extensions, waxing, and pedicure bowls, those 3 areas. So it is worth taking your time with those pedicure bowls. All right, next slide. I don't know what's next, so I'm waiting for the slide.
I
Okay,
think,
so ongoing safety practices,
you,
this is really
yeah, I
things you're
think you're a little
already
delayed.
doing. All
Sorry
right, so
about that.
that's okay. So these are these ongoing safety, and when I get to the end, like to the last bullet, you can just switch it over. I'll be ready. These are things you're already doing, and it sounds probably a little repetitive over what we just talked about. So I'm only going to go into the things that are new on these slides. Masks are new on this slide. I do think almost every state is going to require you as a beauty professional to wear a mask during a service, whether or not they require it of your clients as much as possible. Obviously, having a mask on and trying to cut someone's hair is kind of a difficult thing. I don't that is kind of up in the air state by state, but I think every state yesterday on the call said they anticipated masks would have to be worn. Gloves are not a thing that I'm a huge, I'm not a big supporter of gloves, only because I feel I love gloves in healthcare, but gloves will become very expensive to get, and a glove that you wear all day long, to me, is more dangerous than your naked hand that you're looking at all day thinking, oh my gosh, I have to wash my hands. Oh my gosh, I have to wash my hands. People have a tendency to keep gloves on far too long, to touch way too many surfaces. And when they become hard to get and expensive, you're more likely to do that because maybe your state is requiring that. So there's a big split in the states over what they're going to require. I do think you will be required to wear gloves when you're doing nails. I think that will come across in almost every state. That will probably be a requirement because you are actually touching somebody else's hands. All right, next slide in the delay. If you want to tell me what it is, I can start talking. Okay, hand hygiene. Okay, I'm just going to say it right here. My favorite thing in the whole wide world is hand washing. I love hand washing. That makes me a really boring person. I get it, but I love hand washing because it's so simple and it does so much. If everybody did proper hand washing, we would reduce colds and flus every year by about 50% across the board. So we all have heard it, how to wash your hands for the full 30 seconds, whatever song you want to sing, happy birthday song. I think there's a whole bunch of them out there now that everyone's saying a 30-second song. It does not matter what is in the container of soap. I prefer you not use antibacterial soap. I prefer you use regular soap. Antibacterial soap, if you think about the name of it, antibacterial. Okay, we didn't say anything about viruses and we didn't say anything about funguses on that soap. And all that soap does is reduce the reproductive nature of and the growth of bacteria. And here's the reality with that. If it's going to work on any bacteria on your hands, it's going to work on your good bacteria. And your good bacteria is there for a reason. It is meant to take up space on your hands so nothing else can live there. And if you use antibacterial soap and it takes away your good bacteria, you have now selected for bad bacteria to live on your hands. And that's why epidemiologists don't recommend antibacterial soap. So just anything that makes bubbles, I don't care what it is, that makes bubbles, and you can get a good bunch of surfactant bubbles going in between your hands, and for a good 30 seconds rubbing them together, that mechanical process, and then you run it down the sink, you've done the best you can do for your body. Now, hand sanitizer, if I were to say good, better, best is hand washing, better is a hand sanitizer. It does work, it is effective. But what I would say is that it's not allowed in most of your states. Probably only 20 states right now allow for hand sanitizer in place of hand washing. And all your states require that you wash your hands. And it is also, as you probably know, very, very drying. And anytime you have very dry hands with very little open cracks, that is a portal of entry into your body, and it makes you at higher risk for picking up any kind of an infection. So I really prefer that you wash your hands, and I really want you to maintain the nice intact skin that you have. I've been telling everybody I know that they should invest in lotion companies because we've all been washing our hands so much. But putting lotion on at night before you go to bed, using it frequently, in between clients or on the weekends. I guess you guys will be working 24/7 when we all go back. But trying to maintain intact skin is really important. It is your first line of defense. Okay, next slide. And I must have a horrible delay. I'm so sorry. Oh, customer relations. I would suggest asking your clients if they've been sick. The reality is everyone's going to start asking everybody. It's going to become like personal knowledge. Like you're going to wear a sign on your forehead that says, no, I have not been in contact with anyone with COVID-19 that I'm aware of. No, I don't have a fever. But I do want you to do the second point, which is make your customer feel comfortable having a conversation with you about their concerns. If you are wearing a mask, to me, you're saying I get it. I know that everybody's nervous. It's your message to me that you're taking this seriously, and it gives me a moment to be able to ask you questions and feel comfortable with that. I shared this the other day with everybody, and I think it's worth sharing. I asked my husband one day, "What do you think it will be like when you go back to get your haircut?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." And I said, "Well, what do you think? What do you want it to look like?" And he said, "Well, I want her to be wearing a mask." And I said, "And what if she isn't wearing a mask?" And he said, "Well, I'll get my haircut there that time, but I'll never go back." He doesn't want to embarrass her, but he also doesn't want to impose upon her his concerns. So I think you take that on as your consumers come in, as your clients come in, and you say, I want you to know what I've done for you. I want you to know how I've made this safe. I know this is probably a little awkward for you, and it's feel kind of awkward for me, but ask me anything. Ask me any question you want. One of the things I do know people are doing, like taking the barbicide certification and printing off the certificate and putting it somewhere prominent. Somebody might ask you, and you can say, hey, that's what I did when I was, on my stay-at-home order, and here's what that means. So make that possible. Next slide, and I'm going to finish. While she's getting to the next slide, I'm also going to say that I just noticed that I'm talking about the spacing of your chairs. I do know some states will be asking you to either remove all the chairs from your waiting room, or they will be asking you to only have like 1 or 2 chairs. I actually think it's a great idea. You guys don't have a waiting room, but you have a hallway, and I noticed in your rules you're not going to have people sitting in your hallways. So I think you guys really have the most ideal scenario of anybody, because you're already used to that being a one-on-one environment. So I think that's great. This is an example of something that we put together that might be an email. It might be something that you put in the window of your actual part of the salon that says, here's the things I did. These are the things that I did for you while while we were both at home. I wasn't just sitting around doing nothing. I was getting prepared. And also take accountability, not accountability, take credit, I should say, for all the work you did when you were back in cosmetology school, however many years ago that was, and you did learn about things like universal precautions. I've been telling people, no, you can't do the service safely because there's no way you can do it 6 feet away. But what you can say to your customer, I cannot stay 6 feet away from you, but I did go to school and I did learn how to make this as safe as possible, how to mitigate these risks. And that's what I'm doing. Take credit for everything you learned and feel comfortable that you are taking credit, that you are doing the proper thing. I think that might be my last slide, but go ahead and see if there's another one.
Well, Leslie, real quick, I just
that might be my last slide. I'm not sure.
I'm so grateful.
Yep.
If you want to go back, Melissa, the examples of it will be, and like with the examples of the reassurance, I love that you kind of give an example of, what to provide to your customers. I think that the point that I got across from you mostly in discussing the last week is that communication. And I think that getting it out in the open and just talking about, I love the story about your husband, because that was such an eye opener that he loved his hairdresser so much. But he didn't feel safe. So love and safe are 2 different things, So I love that communication is going to help that barrier between us and our guests. I love that this letter kind of helps give us an idea how to communicate with our clients. And then the other photo we have here is also on our post, our COVID-19 Resource Center for SOLA. It's open for all beauty professionals, but that one blog is just specifically on how to do that and just give us kind of that new confidence. And I love that you said to celebrate what we were already doing. We just never talked about it. So it will be reassuring to say, hold off, let me make sure that I get get rid of this used tape and get you a fresh, clean tape, and put this one in the dirty bin. Just, we never talked about that before. So that's just like one example. And then I love the little checkoffs. And I think also what was interesting is, I don't know if you knew this, but, personally, I take advantage of our Sola Genius, which is a Powered Through Gloss Genius, which is a online booking system, but we also pay that way, and it scans a card. And I kind of love that I can be in control of the whole service. But in that scenario, they're kind of pulling out their personal items and money and all that. So I kind of encourage people when they're at home, maybe looking into like online booking and what that looks like, because that was kind of the only thing I couldn't really control.
Right.
Melissa, you can go to the next slide.
I love that you guys have the ability to,
the last one that we have
everybody is
our Q&A.
So this is the certificate, if you get Barbicide certified, that you can print out at the end. People are posting them on their social media. putting them in frame. Yes, I think I'm talking. Are you not hearing me? Are you hearing me? Hello?
We can hear you.
I
We
don't
can
think you
hear
hear
you.
me.
Yes,
I
you're
think you
good.
muted
There's
me
just a
maybe.
little delayed.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So the Barbicide certification program, okay, it is free of charge on our website. You can go on, and it takes about 40 minutes to do, maybe a little bit less. And it's just a reminder. It's for most of you, you've been out practicing. You're not, this was really designed for students that were just finishing up. But what I've found is that all the licensees out there felt like this was just a great reminder for them that they were doing it right. This is what I learned. Or if there was something that they weren't doing properly, it was the moment to have that aha moment. So feel free to go to the site and do it and print out your certificate, post it on all your social media so your clients know that you've done it, and then feel free to come back and take the COVID-19 one that will be available in May.
Awesome. Okay, so our last slide here is we have a Q&A. We're going to let Melissa kind of read off questions, and we apologize for a little bit of the technical difficulty of the delay. We think it's because we were maxed out on this webinar. So we're so glad that there's all this interest. That just makes me so happy that we're getting this information to as many people as possible. So Melissa, we will both be conscious that there's a delay. So if you want to read a question at a time for Leslie, we'll just have a little bit of a pause. Thank you.
All right, that sounds great. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and send them through the question box. And I'm just going to start weeding through some of the questions that I'm seeing kind of asked over again. So this first question I have is, what is the best way to sanitize brushes and shears between clients, since we cannot use a fresh one or pair between each one?
Okay, so obviously you're going to clean and disinfect them. If I were me, I would make up a tub of Ship Shape, for example, and just have it. The solo salon I go to, I know what she does is she has a tub of Ship Shape that she keeps in her cabinet, and she gets the hair out. Actually, she's usually talking to me while she's pulling the hair out of the brush, and then the brush gets stuck into the cleaner, and then she moves it into the disinfectant. By the time I'm out of the chair and out of the salon, and she does the same thing with her shears, by the time I'm paid and I've chatted with her for a second and the next person's come in, she's pulling that stuff out and she's drying it off in front of me. I will tell you, if you do that, if you're pulling things out of the disinfectant as I'm sitting down in the chair and I'm seeing you drying that off and getting it ready to use, you don't have to tell me what you're doing because I'm actually seeing it. It's you demonstrating what you're doing for me. So that's kind of powerful. I think that's a great idea.
Awesome, thank you. I'm also seeing a lot of questions coming in about reusable and cloth masks. So if you are using a cloth mask, how often do you suggest it be changed and cleaned?
So if you're using a cloth mask, technically speaking, you should be, anytime you take it off, and that includes pulling it down, in between, let's say a client leaves and you're hot. I do know from being a nurse that wearing a mask for any length of time is really hot and hard to get used to. But let's say, if you have the tie ones, I will tell you this, if you're getting masks, the tie ones are way more comfortable to wear for long periods of time. The ones that go behind your ear will drive you crazy. If you know any nurses, ask them, because over time, most nurses will not wear them long term. So if you get a tie mask and you tie it up on the top of your head, on the crown of your head, and then you tie it behind your neck, you will have the tendency to do what you see doctors do on TV shows, which is pull the top knot down over the front of your face and let it hang around your neck. Technically, you're supposed to wash it every time you do that. You're supposed to put a fresh one on. I don't think that that's very realistic in this environment. I think probably the most realistic thing is to wash it daily. Maybe if you take it off at a lunchtime or something like that when you leave, and put a fresh one on at the end, after lunch. You're not supposed to be working sick anyway, so remember, the mask protects the other person, not you. So you're really not supposed to be working sick anyway, but I would say at the very least, wash it daily.
Thank you. A couple questions about just barbicide products. This question specifically is, what is the difference between barbicide and carbicide? I'm an esthetician and I've mostly used carbicide.
So, they're not a big difference. If you're talking particularly about the wipes are the same. So we sell into the professional beauty industry. They sell into mostly dental, but medical and dental. But just as a little aside, when there was all of the need in the healthcare market, barbicide wipes were used, right where cavicide wipes were used. They're really the exact same product, just different labels.
Thank you. I'm just kind of reading through. You know, Leslie, there's a lot of questions from estheticians. How can we address just the service of being an esthetician in this time and best practices?
So aesthetics is kind of a unique field in that
Go ahead, Kimmy, what were you saying?
Most uniquely, you are in the worst body. Do you want me to continue? I'm going to keep answering the question because estheticians are in a unique body position in relationship to their client, so that you are almost always in a position, particularly when you're doing anything facial, with you literally breathing everything down into their airspace, which I think will make people very uncomfortable now. I think estheticians, you already wear gloves a lot and you should continue to do that. I think you may want to be better prepared in terms of when the client's coming in, maybe having a pair of gloves on to clean your room up before the client comes in. But then once you've discussed what you're going to do and you're getting out whatever you're going to use, whatever product you're going to use, putting on another pair of gloves, getting the product in one place so that you're not reaching for multiple containers. You're making it as already everything is right in your area. And I do think that if I were an esthetician, I might consider, particularly if I was going to use cloth masks, having a few of them available, but probably I would suggest getting a little more aggressive with your mask if that's available to you, just because of the positioning with your client.
Great. And I think we have time for one more question. And I'm seeing a lot of questions about, how to communicate with clients and them wearing masks. Should we suggest that all clients wear masks? If we have them, just have them, available for them to choose? Kind of what's the best practice, do you think, for relaying masks to clients?
So that's a great question, and I think that goes along with how do I have uncomfortable conversations with people, and it is an uncomfortable conversation. I think there's really two groups of people today. There are people that you see out and they always have their masks on, and then there's people that never have them on. And I think that there is the first group of people will not be a problem. They're going to come with their mask on. You're not going to have that conversation. It's going to be the uncomfortable conversation if you live in an area where it's not required by your mayor or your governor, and if you have somebody who traditionally is not wearing a mask. So I think the way to have that conversation is to say, I have some disposable masks here, and I'd really appreciate it if you would consider wearing one. Mostly because I have so much volume right now. I'm so busy with everyone. You make a joke about it. I'm so busy with everyone who didn't get a haircut or didn't get their hair colored or whatever, didn't get their toenails done. Whatever that joke is to say, oh my gosh, I'm swamped. But because I have so many people coming in, I don't want to risk, I can't afford to get sick. I haven't been working for a month and a half, and I don't want to get anyone else sick. So would you mind wearing a mask? The other thing I can always say is you can always put it back. You can always sort of be good cop, bad cop. And if it were me, I might put it back on saying, you know, the board is encouraging us to have people wear masks. And I think most of your boards will encourage that. So I don't think it's not like you're making something up, but the board is encouraging us to have clients wear masks. And I really, you know, if an inspector walked in, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything right. It's an uncomfortable conversation, I get it, but I think there's ways to kind of dance around it, and you'll get more comfortable with it. Even at the end of the first day, you'll be comfortable with it.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how fast this hour is going. And you know, I just want to give one little shout out. You know, we have a Sola Pro app, and they have a store. We have a Sola store as well. And we're trying to order there for pre-sale for a reusable mask right now. And then we're trying to get restocked on more disposable masks. So, you know, keep checking at the Sola store. We're doing capes because I know we're going to be washing a lot more of those. So there's going to be a lot of options there. I also wanted to say, if you go to the Barbicide website, again, that's where you can take your online certification. And it's less than an hour. I'm sure it's faster for other people. I was taking notes. So, and then that beautiful certification that you saw on the screen, you know, they send that to you right away. You can print it out and put it in your salon. I already just ordered a beautiful frame for mine. And then I also want to make sure that everyone knows about the COVID. If you want to go to the next slide, Melissa, you know, our COVID-19 resource center, there's tons of education, information on loans and anything that you can think of that they have put together that is in our language, and it's open for the whole beauty industry. I'm very proud of the Sola team, of all the hard work that they continue to do and update that every day. Again, Jenny's webinar on Tuesday is right there. You can register there as well on upcoming more education. And then last but not least, I know that we've gotten a lot of questions on, you know, where to find the Barbicide. You know, they said you can go to the website. You can also click on where to buy in your area, and it'll give you a list of distributors and stores that carry Barbicide, so you can get it whenever you're reopening. And then last but not least, I want to thank, oh my God, this amazing star that we had today. Leslie, you are just such an amazing person, and I bet you never thought when you went to nursing school that you were going to wind up being this hero shero for the professional beauty industry. And I know on behalf of everyone that we all just thank you and the strength and your fight and everything that you're doing for us. We are so grateful to have you. I'll let you finish the webinar with a goodbye, and also if there's anything that you're doing upcoming that we can follow you, please let us know.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I love having this great audience of people that have really taken ownership of their jobs. I mean, you guys own your own salons. How fabulous is that? And I think you all need to feel empowered to go back in and make us all beautiful again. I certainly need it. I'm so glad you can't see me today. Please feel free to go to our website. There's lots of podcasts there, but also we will have that COVID-19 training with a certificate available for you on May the 1st. Thank you guys so much. Please stay safe.